Hi everybody, Russ and My Hammers 11. Hope you're all safe and well. New channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you're made aware of any time we put new content in. Obviously, throughout the whole of September, we're trying to raise loads of money for the Iron Supporting Food Banks group. So we hope to raise £20,000 by the end of September. We're about 18 grand, so not too bad with a week and a bit left, so make sure you donate to that. Link in the description below. Today's guest, another ex-Hammer. I'm very fortunate enough to interview lots of fantastic ex-players, and Jimmy's no exception. He played 57 times completely in his time at West Ham, scored 22 goals in that 57 game. That's not too bad. 57 appearances, 22 goals. And you know, he helped us in that promotion season, as well as obviously lots of other fun and games during his times there. How are you, Jimmy?
I'm good, thanks.
How's life
Considering
been?
my age.
I was about to say, I'm not, nothing, no disrespect, but how's it been in this sort of like weird new world that everyone lives in now for you?
Oh, it's just totally different, particularly the football world, with the amount of money players are earning. It makes you laugh, really.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. Yeah.
I had a long career and played for quite a few clubs, and obviously West Ham was the best club I played at. Um, yeah, it's just the game's different, and obviously the money and everything else, the attention, the VAR, everything. It's just it's all just totally different, and
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate because I'm an ambassador at West Ham, so I get to see quite a few of the games, and
Well, not at the
it's
moment. You can't see him in the moment,
not at the
Jimmy, can
moment.
you?
No, not at the moment. That this lockdown is driving everybody nuts, isn't it? Just keeps going on and on, and I don't really think the government know what they're doing. They don't know what
No.
to, I'm not blaming them for anything, but it just
I don't think anyone does, to be honest, Jimmy. Innit? I mean, that's the trouble. I think you get mixed messages, and I mean, the British public more than anything, give them an inch and they'll take a mile, and it's, I mean, with the football and stuff as well. Obviously, we had a whole 100 days without Premier League football. I don't know how we
I
survived,
know.
and then we had a deluge of games behind closed doors. I was fortunate enough to be one of the 300 there, and and then back, doing more stuff now. So it's just weird, isn't it? And obviously, you got some test games. You had the West Ham women's team was a test
Yeah.
game last week, which was quite good by all accounts. But you can have a test game of 1,000 people, but you can't go into a pub with more than six of you.
I know.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy, isn't it? It just there's rules for some and rules for I don't understand half of it. But
No.
in fact, next weekend I'm going up to Bradford, playing a bit of golf, and there was seven of us, but one of the lads have had to drop out to make it six. It's just
Wow.
crackers, isn't it?
It's crazy. I had it's my birthday next week, and they and we booked a table, and there's seven of us, and they've cancelled it. And I was like,
Yeah.
fucking hell, three of them are kids anyway, but it doesn't matter. But it is what it is. And as you said, yeah, I mean, obviously with the lockdown and stuff and restart and behind closed doors, obviously loads of football going on. Jimmy, are you a crowd noise on or a crowd noise off person?
I think it's better watching it with the noise on
Yeah.
because if there wasn't, you didn't hear the sort of fans in the background. It's be quite boring. I think it just it's brilliant the technology, the way they do
Oh
it.
yeah.
Because when a goal's scored, obviously it's just you can hear. If the sound wasn't on, you just hear a few players like congratulating the goal scorer. But because of the technology, it's like the fans are there. So I think it enhances it.
It's really clever. I mean, it's really clever. Although it did
It
make me
is. It's
laugh. It did
unbelievable.
make me laugh when we were playing Norwich, and obviously we were 3-0 up at half time, and the crowd booed Norwich off the pitch, and
Yeah.
there's a turning point in your career when you get booed off by the robots, and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it was all good fun. Obviously, West
Well,
Ham did.
I experienced that once or twice at Upton Park. From the chicken run. When you're not doing well or you're losing at half time, they certainly voice their opinion, the West Ham fans. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's the way it is. It's
that's the way it is.
yeah, the
Exactly.
technology is amazing. It certainly enhances watching the games. That's for sure.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I mean, it wouldn't have if we. when people talk about lockdown and stuff, and we're fortunate in that we're in a world where we do have the technology now. Could you imagine it being locked down 30 years ago or whatever, when there's no Netflix, there's no YouTube, you'll be crawling up the walls. It'll be awful, but at least we've got the technology to see us through it all. But and West Ham did the job. After restart, Moisey got a tune out of them, and they stayed up, which was great. Which is what we wanted,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Really. So
to be honest with you, the way it was looking at the time, Ross, you feared a little bit.
we did,
You
yeah.
thought, well, are we going to get the results to stay up? But the performances, and Antonio was like out of this world, wasn't he? He scored 4 at Norwich the game of Watson. It's just amazing how they done it. And,
He just had
obviously,
he had the bit between his teeth, didn't it? It just seemed, and that's the Antonio, I mean, you've
yeah,
obviously
but
watched
that's what it's like when you're a striker and you score a few. Sometimes you get on a run. I remember, I done it at West Ham, and I was at
You
Reading.
did.
I scored about 8 games on the trot and stuff. When you're in the zone, like he was, and he was just. I'm not saying that he kept the team up on his own, but it wasn't far off it. He
No,
was absolutely
exactly.
out of this world.
And saying that, I mean, we'll talk about you joining a bit early, in a bit. But obviously, you said obviously when you joined West Ham, you went on quite a run. I think you ended up being top goal scorer that season, having only joined from December. Um, so he scored like was
Yeah,
it
well,
13?
I joined the same time as Trevor Morley and Ian
Yeah,
Bishop,
yeah.
and it was an interesting story actually because we were in the Swallow Hotel
Awful
just
Abbey.
on the M25 there,
Yeah.
and a certain Paul Gascoigne was in there at the same time because he'd more or less joined Spurs at the same time. So that was interesting. But yeah, it was surreal really because I scored the winner against West Ham at Bradford City,
Yeah.
and it was about two weeks after that, and I was happy at Bradford, because I was playing for um, uh, Terry Yorath, who was the manager at the time, and I really
Yeah.
liked Terry. Norman Hunter was his assistant. Can you imagine working for them two
Oh
ex
God.
two ex Leeds legends, and fantastic, and he made me captain and everything else, and he said to me, "Oh, West Ham have come in for you," and well, so West Ham's a brilliant club and that, but I was scoring goals at Bradford and I was happy there. And I said, well, I don't really want to go because I'd moved a few times in the
Yeah.
previous year. And the thought of obviously moving house again and all this
Down
business, I
south.
thought,
Yeah.
well, I just want. And then he said to me, listen, get yourself down there because I won't be here long because he had a big fallout with the chairman. The chairman at the time was a guy called Jack Tordoff. He had a load of car businesses and whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And then the next thing I knew was I had a phone call from Lou Macari. So obviously Lou had been on to Terry, and Terry said, well, if you want to speak to Jim, there's his number or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was it. And Lou said, I want you down here, score a few goals, and that we're looking to get promotion and this, that, and the other. And ended up going to West Ham.
Yeah. And it was it and West Ham were the it was just an easy decision really, was it, when Terry went, you might as well go, now, and
Yeah,
Lou phoned you up,
yeah,
and then
it was. And then obviously we were in, me, Ian, and Trevor Morley were in the Swallow a bit together, so we were going training. But the interesting story was that Ian and Trevor, they were there just before me, so they moved out. I think they brought their families down and whatever, and I was still in there. And every night, if I'd been out in the day, obviously I went training, but if I went out in the afternoon or come in the evening, Gaza was sat at the bloody bar, wasn't he? And he was going, Jimmy, get over here. And then in the end, it was that he was with that friend of his, is it Jimmy
Jimmy
Five
Bells,
Bellies or something, yeah. And I just couldn't get away from him, and he wouldn't let you go to bed. So in the end, when I come back, if I was out anywhere and I come back, I had to go through the kitchens to the service elevator to get to my room, because if you go on reception, because the bar was, you could see the
I know the
reception
Swallow,
from the bar, and he just like he wouldn't let you go to bed. And we were there at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then you had to go train the next day. how he done it, I don't know. But he was there all the time. I just,
That's brilliant.
I couldn't get away from the guy. But great, lovely fella.
Yeah.
But very sort of dominant and come here. No, you're not going. I said, that's it. I've had enough now. I'm going to bed, Gaza. No, have another one. Have another one. You know, it was all that business. So I just didn't have any willpower to tell him to do one. You know. Yeah.
So then you sneak around the back in the tradesman's entrance.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, to get
Well, I'm not being funny, Jim. You know, I mean, you mentioned Bish and stuff. I mean, you know, Bish was known. We've had him on the channel and friend of the channel. You know, he tells the odd story of a drunken night or two at West Ham. You know, there was a few.
But that was the culture then.
Yeah,
you know, you played hard. We trained hard, and we all had a drink and stuff. You know, it's a lot different now. Players can't go out and, you know, because of social media and everything else, they can't go out and get drunk and like they do. Obviously, you have a drink at home and stuff, but it's just totally different. You know, that was the way it was, and that was the way it was most of my career. That, you know, the lads trained and they played, and then they always went out and had a drink together. And I remember we at West Ham we had a few golf days and stuff, and I can't even remember getting home after some of them. You know, but can't remember.
There's plenty of good courses around there. Exactly. There's plenty of good courses around there. Obviously, you got Thaden Boys and AB.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
So but that's the thing, and obviously, you know, Bish told me the story how he used to. No, because I interviewed, he dobbed him in. I interviewed Martin Allen, and he said, I asked Bish about his love of polos, and obviously Bish always used to have a pack of polos in his pocket, and so. But apparently they're extra strong mints. They weren't polos, but it's quite funny. And as you said, it's. But I think Jimmy, that those stories and that culture, it endeared players to fans more than they do now. I don't have the same relationship with players that like now than I did during that era, because they were more relatable, if that makes sense. You know, you could walk into the pub, you could walk into that pub down by the Swallow, and you'd probably see a couple of West Ham players in there, or, you know, around the toll gate near the Channel Reef and stuff. And it was as you said, it's a different world now. Footballers are now these sort of uber celebrities.
But as I remember the players' bar at Upton Park, and it was packed out after every game, and there was everybody in there. The whole world, you know, Ray Winston used to be in there all the time. You know, there was a couple of that program was on London's Burn, and there was a couple of actors that were in that big West Ham fans. They were always in there, and then we used to go to pubs after the players' bar. But obviously these days with social media, they have got a players' bar at the London Stadium, but it's down by the changing room, and it's just for the families. Yeah. You know, can you imagine players having a drink after the game now when you've just got beat at home and everybody's got the phone taking pictures of them and that? So you can understand it, but when I played, it was great. Everybody was in there, and I remember Frank McAvenny's girlfriend at the time, Jenny Blythe, who was a Page 3 model, and it could be like minus 21 outside, and she'd always come in and, you know, have these low cut tops on and stuff. That was interesting, but that's the way it was. It's just totally different now, isn't it?
No, it is, and I think that's a detriment, and I think it's a sad thing as well. I just think, you know, footballers don't seem as, I don't know what it is. It's just doing this sort of series and interviewing fans and players, particularly from sort of the not bygone era. It sounds old, but, you know, from the older generation, there does seem to be a real sort of togetherness. You know, even when you interview fans, they talk about the players that they loved and stuff. You had a real sense. Now it's like, oh, okay, who are you going to put at left back? And they're struggling, and they put someone in because they can't. They didn't have a Julian Dix in there, or, you know, or a Tonka, and it's horrible. You know, I mean, I used to live in Loughton, so, you know, which is obviously near the Swallow, and you used to see all the football players, and you know, I used to work in a supermarket, and Shaka would be. And you miss, you know, the excitement of walking down the road and seeing.
Fans don't see the players these days. Fans don't see the players these days. You see the old player in the lounges, but that's why the fans at the London Stadium love all the ex-players, because we have a chat with them and do the lounges, and you meet some really nice people, and
You do.
it's an expensive do these days going to
Yeah,
football. And
yeah,
fair play to them. There's nearly 60,000 there every home game, isn't there?
yeah, yeah. There is.
I've got nothing but admiration. And what you do is you get to know one or two of them when
Yeah,
you do the lounges, and they're always going, "Hey, you Jimmy," and all that. They're lovely
yeah,
people. And they all
yeah.
love the club. I mean, the support there is outstanding, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It is. It
Sometimes
is.
the games can be a little bit sort of iffy. It's
Yeah,
it's totally different. We were talking about it earlier, the pitches and everything else.
yeah,
I remember Upton Park, like it was like a
yeah,
quagmire, when it poured down for a few days, but that sort of enhanced the excitement of the game.
yeah.
But now they play on perfect, like carpet-like pitches, don't they? And the balls are lighter and everything else. They don't even get their kit dirty these days, do they? So
No, well, it's
it's
all
just a total
artificial.
different game.
It is.
But
It's grass and it's artificially, stitched in, and it's just totally different now. But and that's the thing. I mean, when you look at obviously when you joined West Ham, and obviously you came in, and obviously Lou brought you in with Bish and Trev, and we spoke about going through hot streaks, and I mean that season, or that rest of that season from December onwards, you banged in a fair few goals that season, Jim, didn't you?
Russell, the sound's gone a little bit. Can you?
Oh, can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to the sound. It's just gone a bit.
Oh, I can still hear you quite well, and you still come okay. I'll talk a bit louder. Can you
It was
hear me?
okay a minute ago. It just
Yeah,
seemed
I
to have
think
dropped.
something. I think someone called you or whatever, and something's
Yeah,
happened.
they
But
did. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, typical, busy man. So I was going to say, when you joined, obviously you joined in December, and then from then until May, you sort of you talk about hot streaks. You were, as I said, you ended up being top goal scorer for the club that season.
Yeah.
Was it just because you were, why did you? Because a lot of people take time to sort of bed into a team, but almost straight away you were starting to bang in the goals. Why do you think that was? Just because you were in a good vein of
Oh,
form from Bradford?
I'd scored a few goals at Bradford
Mm,
before I went to West Ham. As I say, I scored the winner. It was a late
yeah,
goal, right? I think it was the 90th minute
yeah,
when I scored, and then I was just in that sort of frame of mind, that I knew my job. I was the right age at the time, sort of late 20s, around the 30 mark, and I was experienced. And obviously, the players I was playing with, I played with some fantastic
yeah,
players. I mean, as you know, I played for Northern Ireland. I played some great players for Northern Ireland, but
yes,
the best club player I played with, without a shadow of a doubt, was Julian Dix.
yeah,
He could literally play any position in the team,
yeah,
including goalkeeper. By the way, he,
yeah. He
he was
did.
just. And I lived in Billericay with Julian, so we used to travel in all the time together, and
Oh, brilliant.
we had great fun in that. But what a player to play with! And when
Yeah,
you're playing with players like of that, I mean, there's some good players at Bradford, but not as many as
yeah.
we had in the West Ham squad. Martin Allen, I used to room with Martin, Mad Dog they called him, but
Look at
that
you.
was an interesting time room with Martin. But very good players, Alvin Martin, Tony Gale,
Yeah, yeah,
Phil Parks started in goal, and then Ludo came onto the scene. But little Stevie Potts, Stewart, Ray Stewart,
yeah,
great players. It
yeah,
was a
yeah,
privilege for me to play with players of that level week in and week out. And
yeah.
at the time at West Ham, there was probably 4 or 5 strikers, so it wasn't easy to
No.
either get in the team or stay in the team. You had to produce the goods. So
Mm,
um, obviously, as you know, Lou McCarthy signed me
mm,
because he had me before at Swindon.
yeah,
And then he obviously left the
yeah,
club after, it was a matter of weeks, wasn't it?
yeah. Well,
four or
yeah.
five weeks.
February. Yeah, yeah.
And
Something
then
like that.
Billy took over, and
Yeah,
Billy didn't really change much. He sort of kept the same team and same squad and same way that we were playing. So it was just continuation, really.
sure.
And we just managed to go from like strength to strength, because up until me, Trevor, and Ian Bishop came, they were sort of hit and miss. West Ham, they'd win
Yeah.
one week and lose the next, and
Mm,
it was just a matter of getting a few new players in to get that level of consistency that
sure.
eventually got us into the playoffs,
Yeah.
into the top 2 positions. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously, then you had the next year. So it was obviously Billy's first full year in charge, and obviously we went up that year, didn't we? The 1991 season.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, it
miss
was.
at the end. Picked at the post by Oldham for the title. I remember that very well. It
Yeah, it
was.
was.
I,
We did. We managed to go up the next season, and uh, it, probably the worst decision I ever made was I left.
yeah.
Um, I still had about a year on my contract.
Mm.
I remember Ronnie Boyce coming to me and saying, it wasn't Billy. Ronnie just said, "Listen, if you want to play regular football, it might be an idea to, get yourself out playing somewhere
Yeah.
else." Um, and I've always regretted that. I should have stayed an extra year because obviously we did go up into the Premier League,
Yeah.
the top league, and
Yeah.
I'm quite sure if I'd have played, I'd have scored a few goals.
Oh,
There's no doubt
definitely.
about that. So I ended up going I dropped down two divisions to play for Harry Redknapp at Bournemouth,
Yeah.
um, which I didn't really want to do, but Harry can be very persuasive. There's a story behind that as well, but yeah, I went down there and enjoyed my time, and I ended up leading goal scorer at Bournemouth and scored about 25, I think.
Wow.
But
And that and that's the
that's
thing.
my
I mean,
mate. My mate's trying to ring me again, Russ.
oh, you're just
I'm going to
popular.
kill him.
You're a popular man, Jim. And that's the thing. I mean, it's obviously when it would change a manager, it's always particular. It must have been tricky as well. Not tricky, but obviously Lou brought you in, and then obviously Bill came in, and okay, different manager, but it sort of like sorted itself out. And as you said, that's following season, got promoted, and then obviously we had the famous semi-final, the
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest semi-final, and obviously you came off the bench. What was it like? Because obviously everyone always talks about it, and I was never there. I wasn't there, unfortunately. But it was just a completely crazy game from the fans' perspective. They chanted the whole game despite losing 4-0
The
and
whole game. Yeah, I've
ran on
never
the
seen
pitch
anything
and
like it.
yeah,
I mean, I was on the bench that day, and obviously everybody knows what happened. Gailey got sent off
yeah,
um, by what was it? It was Keith Hackett, wasn't it, the
yes,
referee?
yes,
But our fans, it was just incredible, and it
yeah,
wasn't just during the game. It was travelling up there. There was West Ham. It seems that West Ham fans in every car we passed, on the motorway and everything else. It was amazing, all waving out the windows, but
oh,
the
brilliant,
sound on the day was just amazing. But
yeah,
the obvious disappointment was that we didn't get the right result.
no,
Maybe through a bad refereeing decision because it was never
mm,
a sending off.
no,
Um, he got it completely wrong, which made it false. And then, of course, the pitch as well was absolutely terrible.
yeah,
There was about 40 ton of sand on the pitch, and if you can remember, the other semi-final was played at Wembley.
yeah,
And we've had to play at Aston Villa's ground where the pitch was like ripped up and everything else. It was terrible. Um, Obviously, losing Gailey, it wasn't just about losing a player and being down to 10 men. It was the effect of the decision that the referee made. It
mm,
just seemed all the players in the team just seemed to drop their heads,
sure, yeah,
because they couldn't believe that he made such a bad decision.
yeah,
Um, and I still believe I've seen Gailey a couple of times since, and he still has a hump with Keith Hackett.
he
And
does,
I think they even had an interview together, and Gailey told him so. That you got
yeah,
that completely wrong,
yeah,
and he probably Keith Hackett has actually admitted to maybe making the wrong decision, but that makes it worse when you hear that.
it's wrong, yeah,
That
yeah,
now that he thinks that he actually made the wrong decision, but
yeah,
the fans. It was just
amazing,
I've never seen anything like that. It was
yeah,
just amazing. I couldn't even hear. I was on the bench and you couldn't even hear somebody next to you talking to you. It was
wow,
that loud all the time.
wow,
And
mental,
yeah, Forest they won the game 4-0, and a young Roy Keane was playing in the team at the time.
he was, yeah,
But you never heard any of their fans hardly. You heard obviously when they scored the goals they reared up, but
yeah,
our fans just kept chanting from the first minute right to the very end. It was like we
mental,
won the game at the end, and we
yeah,
were out clapping them all.
yeah.
but you feel, as a player, you feel like you've let people down. It's very
Sure.
hard to do that, when you've lost 4-0 and you've had a player sent off, and you still feel aggrieved that the referee made a
Yeah.
decision that's affected the course of the game.
Yeah, of
But
course.
it
Yeah.
was it's a game that you wouldn't forget for different reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I mean, we talked about how the game's changed now. That would have been sent up to VAR, wouldn't it? If it was then,
Most definitely, yeah.
most definitely overturned.
Well, I can't remember. Was it Crosby, the little wing that he dived all around? It was like a
Something
10
like
out of
that.
10 off a diving board, wasn't it? And you couldn't believe that he conned the referee. Uh, that's what makes me laugh about football sometimes, that the people do that and the referee can't see through it.
Yeah.
And then obviously years later, Keith Hackett's admitted, I probably made a mistake there on that decision. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stopped a great set of fans and a great football club maybe getting to an FA Cup final. But
Yeah. Exactly.
that's history.
That is history. That is history, unfortunately, Jimmy. Right, let's talk about your 11, your Hammers 11. So that's the idea of this whole show
Yeah,
is
I've had to
pick an
write it
11.
down in case I forget some names.
Oh, I love it. So as I said, the only rule, I mean, for the players, it's people they've played with at their time at West Ham, and you can play any formation you want, Jimmy. It doesn't really matter. We just 11 names. We'll start off in goal because you haven't got, it's one or two, I think it is. You could pick, and who are you gonna have in goal for the Quinn 11?
Well, it was a very difficult decision because obviously Phil Parkes played when I was there and Ludo McCloskey.
Yeah,
And it's very hard to separate them. I know Phil wasn't he the highest? It was the highest fee for a goalkeeper at
yeah,
the time when he came to
yeah,
West Ham and all that.
yeah.
It's very hard to split them two up, but I'll go with Ludek
Yeah.
because I just thought he was. I just thought he was obviously not better than Phil Parkes, but
No.
he was probably a bit more athletic
Yes.
than Phil Parkes.
Yeah.
But both of them have got the same attributes: great shot stoppers, dominant in the air, could kick a ball great, and everything else. Very hard to split them up, but
Yeah.
I've gone with Big Ludo. Ludo
Ludo.
in goal.
It
It
sounds
was a
good.
great. When he first came, he couldn't hardly speak any English, and it was hilarious. And then
Still can't really.
as he went along, he started picking bits up and that, and it's just funny to hear him coming out with some of the stuff. Yeah.
Oh, bless him. Oh, he's a lovely guy as well. Right, okay, Ludo's in goal. Jimmy, you go through the team as you got it written down, man.
Well, I've got right back.
Yeah.
There was two. There was obviously Potsy and Stewart. I've gone for Ray Stewart.
Yeah.
Tonka, who's it was a pleasure for me to play with because obviously he played for not only West Ham, he played for Scotland and that, and he was renowned for taking penalties. So for me, he's just edged Potsy out of that position.
Yeah.
And he's a great character as well,
Yeah.
right? I see him now and again. He comes down for some of the games, and
He does.
he hasn't changed a bit. He's always ducking and diving, and always got a story to tell. It's great to speak to some of the old players.
Yeah.
Two centre halves were Tony Gale and Alvin Martin, who were different class. Gailey was more of a ball player, a cultured centre half, and Alvin Martin, who I know very well because he used to mark me in training all the time and kick lumps off me. And Billy Bonds had this session that I remember he used to put on all the time that was man for man, and he always put me with Alvin. And Alvin used to just hunt me down and kick me over the heads or something, So, I hated it, but what a great player!
Yeah.
Very, very underrated player, Alvin Martin. Obviously one of the greats. I think has played for West Ham.
Yeah.
He was cultured, but he was rock hard. And I remember one game that I lost my marker from a corner, and he's grabbed me by the throat. He said, "Don't you ever leave your marker again." And I didn't. Tell you what, he scared the bloody life out of me.
Oh,
but
he still would.
Great player.
Yeah.
And obviously the best club player I've ever played with at left back, Julian Dix, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
This guy was hard as nails. He could head the ball. He could, his left foot was like a hammer. He just had everything, and he could literally play any position on the pitch. I mean, he used to play up front in training and all that, and he'd be whacking goals in left, right, and centre. It's just an amazing talent. And I was fortunate enough to play for Northern Ireland some great players, obviously, the great Pat Jennings and Norman Whiteside and Sammy McElroy and people like that. But he, without a shadow of a doubt, is the best club player I've played with, that's for sure. Wow. On the right, I've got Kevin Keane.
Oh, yes.
Who is another very underrated player, in my opinion. Yeah. He's a player that could get up and down the park. Slight in stature, I have to say, but wasn't frightened to put his. He wasn't a tackler or anything like that. But I'll tell you what, he didn't have to get through some work. And then obviously in the centre of midfield, Martin Allen, the two centre midfielders, and Ian Bishop. Ian Bishop was a more cultured footballer who provided you with great balls if you were up front. And Martin Allen was a little bit different. He used to run beyond strikers at the time to get into the box and scored quite a few decent goals.
He did.
On the left at the time, a young Stuart Slater who held that position. He took teams apart on his own sometimes. Some of the games I've seen. I remember we played Sheffield United at home, and I scored a hat-trick in that game. Yes. And Stuart got man of the match. So that tells you how good he was, He absolutely tore the... I think the fullback was... it might have been Will Frostrom, who'd been at... Do you remember him? That was at Watford before, and he'd moved to Sheffield United. And anyway, I think he was nearly on his knees by the end of that game because Stuart just ran him ragged, And he set up to, I think, two of the goals for me. Two of the goals I scored in that game. Brilliant. But he was lightning quick, scored a few goals himself, and he always used to provide you with decent service. So he was on the right. And up front, Trevor Morley, who's probably the best centre-forward that I played with in my career. And that's saying a lot because I played with Norman Whiteside for about 20 internationals. Norman was a great player, but Trevor was, he scored goals himself, but his hold-up play was different class. It's a dream because in my career, I was always the big striker. I was always the one winning the headers and holding the ball up and flicking it on to the other striker to score maybe and stuff. So for me to play with another striker that held the ball up, where I could pick up passes off him, and sometimes he set it back to the midfield, and then I'd make the second run, and it was just a dream, And again, he was a very underrated player in my opinion. He was a great player, Trevor Morley. As I say, he scored goals. And on the other side, I've put myself. Because I like playing with Trevor.
Yeah, of course. You've got to get those appearances up, Jimmy, don't you?
But, I mean, we had Frank was at the club at the time, but Frank went through a period where he had an awful lot of injuries, Yeah. I think he had an operation on his ankle at the time and stuff, But, that was basically the team, and it was I look at them names now, and I haven't wrote them down I haven't seen them for years, and we had a decent side, didn't we?
A cracking team, and it's
great. I don't think you can pick it. I mean, I've got an all-time Hammers 11 that I've picked, and brilliant players, haven't I?
Who's your all-time Hammers 11, Jimmy? Two for one. Who's your all-time Hammers 11 then?
Well, I've got Phil Parkes in goal.
Yeah.
I've got Ray Stewart.
Yeah.
Bobby Moore.
Yeah.
Alvin Martin.
Yeah.
Julian Dix.
Good shout. Yeah.
And just sitting in front of them screening, Billy Bonds.
Yeah.
Where he played there.
Sorry, what was Billy like? Because obviously, as a manager, because you hear the stories of him being the fittest man in the club. and stuff like that, and the Hainault Forest cross country and stuff like that. What was he like as a
I tell you, it was
manager?
embarrassing. Really,
Yeah,
he was. I think he was 40 when I was there, and we done pre-season running and stuff, and he was always up the front. You seen him in the distance and stuff. He ridiculously fit man, and what a great player! What
yeah,
a
yeah,
great
yeah.
player. Um, but I put him in front of the back
Of
four
course,
there,
yeah,
and because I know he played centre half, but he played in midfield as well.
yeah.
He scored one or two goals,
He did, yeah.
but he is without the. I mean, for me, there's only one other player that would be better than him over in the history of West Ham, and that's Bobby Moore.
Yeah.
Um, Brilliant player, absolutely.
Mm,
I've just written a book which will be published shortly,
very good.
and I've written two poems. One of them's about Bobby Moore, and one of them's about
Oh,
Billy Bonds, actually.
oh, lovely.
Um, which will be in the book. So you'll have to
Oh,
wait and
fantastic.
see that one. I'll let you know when it's out,
Yeah,
Russ. But
definitely. Yeah, I'll give it a plug.
yeah,
Definitely.
he was. He he never really got too excited whether you won a game or whether you
No,
lost a game.
no,
He used to
yeah,
come in after, and it was either "well done, lads, get in the bath," or it was "unlucky, lads, get in the bath." He didn't really sort of go into a big routine after the games, which
yeah.
which was great because that sort of thing keeps the confidence going.
Mm.
Because I've been in change rooms where the manager comes in after the game and he's having a go at players. If you've lost, or you've conceded a goal or whatever, and picking people out.
Mm.
He was never one to do that, Bill.
That's
He was clever.
that's really interesting, really, because obviously now, I mean, obviously you've got all these documentaries now where you've got like the Spurs one, I think there is the Leeds one, second series, and you see the sort of particularly Mourinho will come off the pitch and they'll be ranting and raving and I can see how some players will react badly to that because they're like even more so now. I think you've got to be really careful with the managers, the way they interact with players because they can be so not pretend, but so precious rather the players. And so someone like Billy coming in just saying, "Oh, unlucky lads," everyone knows you've lost. There's not really more you can
Yeah.
say. Or well
Yeah,
done,
what he
guys.
used to do, because after a game, obviously emotions are high, whether
Yeah,
you've
of
won a
course.
game or you've lost again.
Yeah,
So he was intelligent enough not to sort of pick
yeah,
anybody out or do whatever. It was always like beginning of the week, he'd pull you in his office or he'd pull you on the training ground and say, "Listen, what do you think of this? Have a look at
yeah.
that, and think you can do that a little bit better and whatever." Um,
That's good.
yeah, he was a good guy. He's what he is.
Yeah,
He's just a genuine, nice guy
yeah,
who obviously was a brilliant footballer in his day,
mm,
and when he spoke, you stood up and listened. He didn't sort of over elaborate, or he didn't go into a big long,
mm.
not like Mourinho. I've seen that series. He likes the sound of his own voice, doesn't
He
he?
loves it, doesn't he? He
Surprised me
loves it.
really because he hasn't really come out with anything different than I've ever seen in the game from different managers.
I don't think anyone has. It's like everyone says, oh, this, obviously with the Guardiolas and the Klopps. We had Dev on a few weeks ago, and he was like, John Lahr was doing that stuff 40 years ago. It's like it's not.
Yeah,
The
it
false
surprised
the
me.
false nine. What the
Surprised me
fuck's wrong?
really.
Yeah, it is. It does.
Obviously, Klopp, for me, the best manager in the league, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's not just because they won the league last year, but Jurgen Klopp is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
unreal.
yeah,
That guy is one hell of a manager. You'd want to just lay down and die for him. I
yeah.
don't think I'd feel the same playing for Mourinho. That's for sure.
No, and it's quite funny. You look at Klopp, and they just
And it's not
released.
just because he's a Tottenham manager, by the way.
Well, I mean, it's quite funny that Tottenham documentary is funny. The second they announced Mourinho's come in, and they really sort of look at all the players, and they're all like, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," like they're shitting themselves,
Yeah,
Mourinho. But what I like about Klopp is, you look at his transfer handlings, and if it led to be believed he's signing Thiago from Bayern Munich today, um, it was I think they've spent 260 million, they've sold 270 million, and you wouldn't say and you'd say their squad's improved
yeah.
dramatically. It's all about, as you said, it's how resources are allocated. But no, I do love those documentaries, and it's quite funny watching the Leeds one because Bielsa has this sort of persona about this being, and he's just a complete nutter. He's just such a strange man, and it's really interesting to hear about these things. But
Yeah,
anyway,
he's a different character
he is
altogether. That guy,
completely differently.
Yeah,
And it's great that he's in the Premier League because Leeds are back and he's back, but he's in the Premier League because I think we need a new character. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Guardiola's been around, Klopp, Mourinho. You need someone else, and Bielsa seems one of those extra characters to just, it used to be like Ferguson and Wenger, and you had all these rivalries. And I just think with
yeah,
Bielsa, I think it's quite a good one. But anyway, we'll go back to you all the time. You had Bonzo playing the defensive, holding midfield player.
yeah. I've got and the midfield. I've got Billy sitting in, and
Yep,
then I've got Alan Devonshire, who was absolutely
brilliant,
outstanding as a player. I thought.
totally.
Uh, Trevor Brooking. So Trevor, who I not only loved watching play for West Ham when he played for them, but when he played for England with Kevin Keegan, they
Yeah,
had a partnership, and I just thought that both of them were outstanding at the time. Great player. And then I've got two rather exciting players playing just off Jeff Hurst,
okay.
and that's DeCannu on the right hand side and Pyatt on the left.
Ooh, could
So
you imagine?
on paper, that looks like an unbeatable team to me,
Yeah,
but obviously everybody's got the favourites and whatever. But I just look at that and I think, well, that team would take some beating.
yeah. Particularly
Um,
on the bowling greens of London Stadium, rather than you know the
there's some
old.
of them older players would like the money these guys are getting today as well, wouldn't they? When you look at that,
Too
it's
right,
brilliant, isn't it?
too right, Jimmy man. It's been absolutely lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed it. It's so nice chatting to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure. And obviously, thank you to everyone who's been watching or listening. Make sure you share, subscribe. And until next time, for me and Jimmy, take care, everyone. Stay safe. Come on, you wines. And we'll see you again very, very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.